Good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. Today is a special day. Today marks 2 full and complete years that I've been a carnivore with no cheating, no deviations, other than coffee. That's it. Not a plant, not a grain, not a sugar, not a carb, other than what comes in meat. And maybe eggs, which is normal. Not a single gram has gone into my body, thereby absolutely proving to me, whether anybody else wants to believe it or not, I have proven to myself that yes, the absolute minimum carbohydrate content needed by the human animal every day, the minimum amount of carbohydrates that you need to survive is zero. I've also not had 1 gram of fiber of any kind in 2 years. My digestion has never been better. So I again have proven to myself, whether anybody else wants to believe it against all of the propaganda, that the absolute minimum amount of fiber required for the human digestive system to work like it's supposed to is absolutely zero. I have proven that to myself. In 2 years, I've proven to myself that there is not a thing, not a phytonutrient, a phytosterol that comes from any plant. Not a single molecule of that is necessary in the human animal for optimal health. I've proven that to myself. So happy carniversary to me. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, I made it 2 years. Now, compared to many people, there's out there, I've been a carnivore for 40 years, 50 years. Yes, maybe they've been eating a lot of meat, but can they really say I never ate a gram of plant or carbs? Not a molecule. So I'm proud of my 2 years. I absolutely expect to continue this for the rest of my life, however long that might be. And however long it is, if I can continue to feel the way I do, then I would have lived a great life with a minimum of pain and suffering. And that's all we can ask. Now, one of the reasons I'm making this video is to try to answer some questions. I get a lot of questions. I get so many comments, thousands of them. And everybody's curious. And most people, as we've talked about, haven't seen all my previous videos where I know somewhere buried in those things, I can't even find it myself sometimes, are the answers and the explanations to some of these questions that you guys ask. So I thought, on the occasion of my 2-year carniversary and the day before I'm about to head out on an adventure to Quito, Orlando tomorrow to wander around, talk to people, do some live streams, record some videos, maybe some short interviews with some of the YouTube stars, I would give you and hopefully brief, something that normally isn't in my wheelhouse, if you know what I mean, a brief summary of what drove me to carnivore, what my shape was in when I started carnivore, what conditions and illnesses I had, what kind of weight situation I had, how long it took to fix some of these things, to get to where I am today, 2 years later. In a world of looking for that quick fix, that magic pill, people don't want to wait too long. But I can tell you, it wasn't a bad 2 years. It was a great 2 years. Very, very little, if any, suffering or misery or discomfort or anything. Once I got over that first 30 days, it's been downhill and enjoyable. Who else can say that 2 years on a diet was enjoyable? This is not a diet. There are thousands of diets for weight loss out there. This is not one of them. This is not just another fad. This is, without a doubt, the evolutionary way the human animal needs to eat for optimum health, period. Stop saying, which diet is better, this or that. This is not a diet. When you are a carnivore, you are not on a diet. No more than a lion is on a diet when it goes out hunting. My diet adventures in life started when I got out of the Army. I'd always been fat as a kid. Went into the Army, and all the exercise and physical activity and the food got me somewhat thin, and I lost weight. But as soon as I got out of the Army back to the world in 1970, I, of course, started eating again, and I put on weight. And I, before too long, blossomed up to around the 200-pound level. I've gotten up to 210, I think. I'm going to show you a picture of what I call Big Mitch. I think this was about as fat as I ever got. I never got morbidly obese. I never let it go. I had too much pride in myself, even though I'm a flaming carbohydrate addict and couldn't help binging, and I only let it get so far, and then my resolve kicked in, and I went back on a diet and got myself down to a 34 to a 36-inch waist, maybe in the 155 to 165-pound range, and that's where I lived most of my life until the addictions took hold again, and up I went. And I did that roller coaster cycle for 50 years, right up until the time I was 75 years old. So I know the power of addiction. I know and have finally figured out why this was happening to me. And no matter how strong I thought I was, I could not fight it. Over the course of that 50 years, even though I didn't abuse it too much, and even though I never became a diabetic, I never had any heart disease or any heart conditions, because most of the time I was eating low carb on one of those low carb diets. And there were many of them: paleo, Mediterranean, you name it. The Zone diet, the Atkins diet. I would lose weight. I would get down to a weight that I thought was my goal weight. And then I would celebrate and go out and treat myself. And that was the end of that. The addictions kicked in. The binging started. In a month or two, I gained back every pound that I had lost. And I got disgusted, looked in the mirror at this huge belly of mine sticking out, and started over. And thus is the story of my life. That brings me up to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I'm on a keto diet, doing okay, keeping my weight down. So I went back to the gym. Worked out too hard. Went to the locker room afterwards. Decided, since it was such a beautiful place with great facilities, swimming pools, saunas, steam rooms, that I would take a steam and then go sit in the sauna for a while. When I got into the sauna, there was another guy in there. I said, "How you doing?" He said, "How you doing?" Next thing you know, we somehow ended up talking about diets like we always do. And Long story short, I stayed in that sauna for about 45 minutes at 170 degrees. When I finally decided I was getting lightheaded, I needed to leave, I almost passed out. I went back to my gym locker. There was a bench in front of the locker. I laid down. I've overdone it before, gotten dehydrated, drank a little water, laid down, figure 5 minutes, I'll be okay. I lay down. Next thing I know, I wake up in the emergency room of the hospital next door to the gym, because this particular gym is a part of the medical complex there. My son's sitting there. What happened, Mitch? Evidently, I passed out. On the way down, I hit the back of my head, right here, on the corner of the bench. I already was unconscious, but really knocked myself out, because come to find out, I was unconscious for well over an hour. I said, what happened? Well, you knocked yourself out. You've got a subarachnoid hemorrhage. We need to keep an eye on you. Now, that is a brain bleed. I said, okay. They said, you might need surgery to drain it. And that involves either they drill a burr hole, or they, in severe cases, have to do a craniotomy. I said, oh, shit. We'll keep you overnight. So they kept me overnight in the hospital. They released me the next day. I said, am I okay? They said, it appears so. And I went home. I said, wow, I dodged a bullet that time. Not so fast, Mitch. Over the next 6 or 7 weeks, I started getting strange symptoms. Aphasia, where for 2 or 3 minutes I couldn't put words together. Can you imagine me not being able to put words together? Huh. I started to have balance issues. I actually fell. I tripped over a coffee table. It was crazy. But it was the aphasia. It was the inability to form speech. And I seemed to be having some memory issues. And that scared me. One day I'm out shopping, my son and I are on the phone, and all of a sudden I can't put words together. Scared him to death. He came and got me, and he happens to be on the board of directors of a local hospital, so he takes me to the emergency room there. He had called ahead. I got the VIP treatment, got to tell you. Next thing I know, I'm on a helicopter from that hospital to a big regional hospital 3 miles away that has a neurology wing and a neurosurgery wing. Land on the roof of there, wheel down to the intensive care unit. Next thing, I'm talking to this neurosurgeon who tells me I've got a very large subdural hematoma that, if it isn't removed or resolves on its own, will kill me. Well, there's something you never want to hear come out of anybody's mouth. I said to this doctor, what are the odds? About 50-50, he says. Duh. Okay, doc, I'm not betting on 50-50 odds that I die if I do nothing. Next day, I had this brain surgery. They cut out a, where is it? I'm looking into me. It's on this side right here. I cut out the whole side of my skull. They removed this, what was it, almost 1 inch thick, big, huge blood clot. Sewed me up, put a drain in there. I recovered in the hospital, went home about 3-4 days later. It took about a month for those symptoms to finally resolve, which was scary, but my brain had been compressed by this clot that it had to expand back. I won't tell you what I went through in that period right after the hospitalization, because that's a whole nother story. But let's suffice it to say, that within about 30 days, I was 90% recovered. And over the course of the next year, I completely recovered, got my speech back, obviously, and my memory completely, and my balance 99%. And I gained 30 to 40 pounds during that period of time over that year, recovering from this, which takes us right up to 2 years ago. So here I am, 2 years ago. Over the course of my year-long recovery, I had been doing a lot of studying. I had been doing a lot of research. I have been trying to do keto, but my addictions just got the best of me. And the comfort I got from eating that crap kind of almost got me through that tough year. I hate to admit that, but we do get comfort from these things, which is why they're so hard to give up. I tried to stay low carb, but I kept sabotaging myself. I really didn't exercise much. But I studied and I watched all kinds of carnivore stuff. And I thought so much about, why can't I kick these carbs? Why can't I do that? I learned so much about addiction. The concept that it's the carb addiction that is the biggest problem with all human health. All of it. It's the root prime cause of it, because I learned and figured out that we can't control it. I became aware of its power over humans, which is evident because of the number of carb addicts out there. I learned every nuance and every in and out of how we got here, of how the religious influence caused this demonization of meat. I learned all of that. It all came together. It took a year maybe in my head. The big picture of what the hell is really going on in this world. I learned all of that. I figured all of this out. I didn't hear this from anybody. All I heard from anybody else was the evidence that what I was seeing was real. So here I am 2 years later. I say, I got it figured out. I know that it's carb addiction that has been sabotaging the last 50 years of my life. I know that that sugar and those seed oils are responsible for all the conditions I have now. And here's what I had wrong with me 2 years ago. I had rheumatoid arthritis. I had kidney stones. I had eczema on my elbows. I had high blood pressure and was on 2 different medications. I did not have diabetes. I did not have heart disease. I did have very high cholesterol, which I have learned is actually a good thing, but still worried about it. I had joint pain in my knees and my back. Other than that, I considered myself pretty healthy for a 75-year-old man compared to most. But I was still in a lot of pain. I still had high blood pressure. I still had the skin issues. I still had the kidney stones, which put me in the hospital twice, where they had to be removed and didn't pass on their own. At the time, 2 years ago, according to the latest scans, I still had 8 kidney stones, some of them almost a ½ inch in diameter, spread out over my 2 kidneys. I'd learned the cause of those, oxalates. The evidence to eliminate plants just kept growing and growing. And the more and more I heard carnivore people talk about plants are trying to kill you, thank you, Dr. Chafee, for that one, and the reasons why. I said in late July of 2022, on August 1st, I'm finished with everything but meat and animal stuff. No more salads, no more vegetables of any kind, no more fruits with their high sugar content, no more tubers and roots, no potatoes, no nothing, meat only. It's kind of a scary thing to consider for your life. But I said, I need to do this. And on August 1st, exactly 2 years ago today, I cleaned house. I cleaned every carbohydrate out of my house. I've made videos about that and threw them away. I didn't want to give them away. There wasn't that many of them, but I threw them away. They were mostly plants and salad and vegetables and things like that that would have spoiled. I got rid of them. I got the carbs out of my house. There has never been a carbohydrate in this house in the last 2 years, other than those trace amounts that are in the meat and eggs, which you can't help and don't hurt and don't certainly cause cravings. I still relied on stevia at the time, and I flavored up my electrolytes with stevia. But I cut out the lemon juice that I had been taking for the previous year, trying to, as they told me, dissolve my kidney stones. And I used to make a big glass of lemonade with stevia and lemon juice every night, which contained carbs, but that had to go as well. But I hadn't gotten off the artificial sweeteners yet, but I was a carnivore. I went through pretty much the same thing that most people do, and it took about 30 days for those cravings to start to leave me alone. And I used my own rules that I formulated that I've since talked about so often. That was, during the first 30 days, I decided I don't give a shit what I weigh. I'm in this for the health. I need to get fat adapted. I had learned all about that. I don't care if I gain 10 pounds. The only thing I have to concentrate on is to not allow myself to get hungry and have cravings, because I will be out of control and it will all have been for nothing. So I ate. I always had plenty of food on hand. I had food cooked and ready to go. Everything I've talked about. I won't rehash all of those rules now, but I have many videos about how to start carnivore. What do you do for the first 30 days? I did that. And 30 days later, it worked. My cravings had become manageable. I was never hungry very often. That's when I decided, okay, it's time to bring in the eating style that I intend to keep for the rest of my life. And that's when I started the intermittent fasting. I did some OMAD, decided I couldn't get enough food in me 1 meal a day, so I settled on 2 meals a day with a 4 to 6 hour eating window, and I've been doing that faithfully ever since. I decided no snacking because I learned so much about how the digestive cycle works, and snacking just interrupts that, causes cravings, screws you up. And in 2 years, I have never had one bite of food in between my 2 meals of the day, and that has served me well. I learned not to drink tremendous amounts of liquids with my meals because that screws up the digestion, dilutes your stomach acid. My gut settled down. That took a little longer. My bathroom trips at first were 7 days apart. Scared me. I finally learned that was not constipation. That was the fact that my hugely blown out colon from all of that fiber and crap over those years needed to shrink. And with a little bit of waste this new diet was producing for me, I didn't need to go any more than once a week. That has settled down now every 2-3 days. Works perfectly for the first time in my life. I had no sugar problems. I had no diabetes, so I can't tell you that this cured my diabetes. I had no chest pains, no heart disease, no shortness of breath as far as I know. I've had some echoencephalograms, echocardiograms. I never had a problem with that. I can't say it cured that. I can tell you that there are many, many instances where it has cured those things, especially diabetes. But for me, no. I never claimed that it did that. My A1C last time was 4.9 or 5.0. My sugars, my triglycerides, all my numbers are perfect now, except I have a LDL of 340, which causes the entire medical community to think that I'm on death's door and need to be treated with kid gloves, not allowed to eat an ounce of fat or salt, lest I might die. They are so out of their friggin' minds, divorced from the reality of something you'd think that they're incredibly knowledgeable on, which is biochemistry. Not if it gets in the way of what turns out to be their agendas. Can't go there in this video either. After a few months on carnivore, even after those dreaded first 30 days eating like there's no tomorrow, my weight within 6 months, maybe between 6 months and a year, settled in at 138 pounds. 138 pounds. I've never weighed 138 pounds since I was in my 30s and bicycled a hard 25 miles every morning. That didn't last long either until the cravings took over and back on came the weight, because it was just too much work to maintain your weight by exercising so much and still having cravings. You can't sustain that. I couldn't sustain it back then, but I did get down to 138 pounds. I remember that number. That number is evidently what my optimal body weight is, because nothing I do, and I talked about this recently in a video, nothing I do or consciously think about affects my weight. I have no need to think about my weight. I don't even want to know what it is every day. Every time I step on the scale, just out of curiosity, it's 138 pounds. So to wrap this up, on 2 years of carnivore, every medical condition I had, from high blood pressure to arthritis and joint pain, skin conditions, gut issues, has completely gone away. My blood work is perfect except for my LDL, which is perfect for me. I think it helps. My body's functioning optimally. My testosterone, believe it or not, is 729, which is double that of most 30-year-old men, because I have an adequate supply of cholesterol, which is the precursor for that hormone. And I'm not allowing these butchers in the medical community to artificially screw up my metabolism by taking a statin. I've never bought into that. I've always considered this cholesterol model, the diet heart hypotheses of Ansel Keys, to be the biggest crock of bullshit and fraud ever perpetrated on the human race. And look what it's done. Look at where we are today. And yet, these idiots still don't recognize the cause of this disaster the human race has with its health and the direction we're going, both physically and mentally. For me, and that's all I can do, is control my own life. I waited a year after starting carnivore to see what happened, to get results. I had my old YouTube channel, but unlike some of these people who thought they were qualified after being on carnivore for 4 days to go on YouTube to tell everybody all about it, I knew that 4 days, even if you may have thought you've seen some results, doesn't qualify you to be a teacher. And if you're going to be on YouTube, you should know how to teach. You should be a teacher. Not only that, but you should be confident enough that what you're teaching is the real deal, not just some fluke that happened to happen to you over 4 days. But it's not my place to tell people who should or shouldn't be on YouTube. There's plenty of people telling me I shouldn't be on YouTube. So that's up to you, and up to you what you watch. But I didn't feel qualified, certainly, even though I already had a YouTube channel, to go on YouTube and start talking about carnivore. But after 1 year, after stabilizing my weight, after ridding myself of all of this, after studying and research and learning the sciences of paleoanthropology, evolutionary biology, cellular biology, delving into the history of how we got this crazy advice we got now, I pretty well assumed I was as qualified as anybody on YouTube, even the doctors, to talk about this intelligently and realistically, as long as I had a disclaimer that said, I'm talking about my opinions, my experiences, and my results. There's no guarantee you're going to experience the same thing. That's the best I can do. That's the best I can do. I'm convinced that I'm not from Mars. I'm convinced that I am indeed a human being, that my chemistry works almost identical to your chemistry. So I can assume that if it worked for me, it most likely will work for you, unless you're broken, and that's possible. You may have damaged something to the point where it cannot recover. Sorry, can't help that. So on the occasion of my 2-year carniversary, getting ready to go to Keto Orlando tomorrow to immerse myself in a sea of keto people and carnivores, at least for a day. Thank you for watching this. I hope this has answered some of those questions. To celebrate my carniversary, my breakfast today is going to be a ribeye and eggs. Something I don't usually eat for breakfast, but steak and eggs may end up being the only meal I eat today, because it's a lot of food. I'm going to have a 17-ounce ribeye and 4 or 5 eggs. Probably eat that about 1 o'clock in the afternoon today. And that'll be it. I'll see you tomorrow on live streams, which I'm going to do from the keto conference in Orlando. I hope I don't become too big a pain in the ass to people there with my live streams, but I'm going to be more like a reporter. So I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you can tune in on these things, or at least watch the replays of them. And until then, until I see you all tomorrow, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.